Captain Sarah Chen stared at the massive alien ship floating dead in space, its hull scarred by energy burns and asteroid impacts. The vessel belonged to the Cathara, the most feared predator species in the known galaxy. For 3 centuries, no one had dared challenge them. Their ships were legends of destruction, their warriors unstoppable forces of nature. But this one was dying. "Scan complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Hayes from the sensor station. "The ship's life support is failing. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Whatever hit them, it hit them hard." Sarah nodded grimly. The distress signal they'd intercepted wasn't a trap or a trick. It was genuine desperation. The message had been simple and shocking. "Cathara Offspring in danger. Assistance required. Will pay any price." The bridge fell silent as crew members exchanged uncertain glances. The Cathara had never asked for help from anyone, especially not from humans. Most species considered humans weak, barely worth notice among the great powers of the galaxy. They were wrong, but Sarah saw no point in correcting their assumptions until necessary. "Captain," Dr. Martinez spoke up from his position at the medical station, "the Cathara young have very specific environmental needs. If their life support is failing, they'll die within hours," Sarah finished. She'd studied the Cathara extensively during her years at the academy. Their children required precise atmospheric conditions and temperature control to survive. Any deviation could be fatal. The communications officer, Ensign Park, looked up nervously. "Should we respond to their signal?" Every regulation, every piece of diplomatic protocol, every shred of common sense said to stay away. The Cathara were apex predators who viewed other species as prey or obstacles. They'd destroyed entire civilizations for sport. Their children would grow up to be just as dangerous. But Sarah had watched the Cathara distress signal 17 times now. Behind the alien syntax and harsh consonants, she heard something that transcended species barriers, a parent's desperate love for their child. "We respond," she decided. "Hayes, take us in slowly. Martinez, prepare the medical bay for alien physiology. Park, open a channel." The Cathara ship loomed larger as they approached. Sarah had never seen one up close before. The vessel was a work of art and terror, its organic curves suggesting something that had grown rather than been built. Weapon ports lined its hull like the spines of some deep-sea creature. The communications channel crackled to life. The voice that emerged was deep and filled with what could only be pain. The universal translator struggled with the complex harmonics of Cathara speech. "Human vessel, I am War Leader Thaxkar of the hunting fleet. My offspring are dying. Our ship struck a temporal anomaly. Systems failing. Life support compromised. I beg your assistance." The word beg hit the bridge like a physical blow. Cathara didn't beg. They commanded, conquered, or killed. For a war leader to use such a word meant the situation was beyond desperate. "War Leader Thaxkar, this is Captain Chen of the UES Resilience. We're prepared to offer assistance. Can you transfer your offspring to our ship?" A long pause followed. Sarah imagined the internal struggle taking place on the Cathara vessel. Trusting their most precious possessions to aliens went against every instinct their species possessed. "Human Captain, my offspring number 12. They are in deep hibernation pods, but the pods are failing. Temperature dropping, atmospheric mixture corrupted. They will not survive transfer without proper equipment." Dr. Martinez was already shaking his head. "Captain, we don't have Cathara-compatible life support pods. Our medical bay isn't equipped for their biology." "Then we improvise," Sarah replied firmly. "Hayes, bring us alongside their docking port. Engineering team, I want you to start fabricating environmental suits sized for Cathara young. Use whatever materials we have." "Captain," interrupted the tactical officer, "their weapons are still partially operational. If this is a trap..." It's not a trap, Johnson. A species doesn't fake the death of their children. The docking procedure took precious minutes. Every second counted as life support on the Cathara ship continued to deteriorate. Sarah suited up and led the rescue team personally, bringing Dr. Martinez and Chief Engineer Rodriguez with her. The airlock cycled open, revealing the alien ship's interior. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The corridors were works of art, organic metal flowing in patterns that seemed to pulse with life. But beautiful or not, the ship was clearly dying. Emergency lighting cast everything in a hellish red glow, and the air tasted of ozone and fear. War leader Thaxkar met them at the airlock. Sarah had expected a monster, but the Cathara was magnificent in a terrifying way. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, his chitinous exoskeleton was marked with scars from 100 battles. 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel, and his triangular head held eyes that burned with desperate hope. "Human captain," he rumbled. "Follow me quickly. Time grows short." They moved through corridors filled with the Cathara crew. Sarah noted how they watched the humans with a mixture of suspicion and desperate hope. These were warriors who had never known defeat, reduced to praying that their enemies might save their future. The nursery chamber took Sarah's breath away. 12 hibernation pods lined the walls, each containing a Cathara child no larger than a human infant. The pods were failing, their organic surfaces flickering between health and decay. "Beautiful," whispered Dr. Martinez. Sarah nodded. Despite everything she knew about their species, the young Cathara were undeniably precious. Their exoskeletons were still soft, their features delicate. They looked peaceful in their hibernation, unaware that death was approaching. "The temperature has dropped by 12 degrees, Thaxkar reported, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "Atmospheric composition is shifting. We have perhaps 1 hour before the first deaths occur." Rodriguez was already scanning the pods with his equipment. "The technology is biological, Captain. I can interface our systems, but it'll be crude. We're talking about jury-rigging life support for a species we barely understand." "Then we learn fast," Sarah replied. "Doctor, I need you to scan their physiology. Rodriguez, start connecting our environmental systems. I'll help Thaxkar prepare the young for transport." What followed was the most delicate operation Sarah had ever undertaken. Working with Thaxkar, she carefully lifted each hibernating child from their failing pod and placed them into hastily modified human environmental suits. The suits were too large, but they provided the necessary atmospheric mix and temperature control. The Cathara children were lighter than expected, their bodies designed for agility rather than brute strength. Their faces, visible through the suit helmets, were hauntingly beautiful in their alien way. "Your species," Thaxkar said quietly as they worked. "Why do you risk yourselves for our young?" Sarah considered the question. "Because they're children. Because you asked for help. Because sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do." The war leader's eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "My species has underestimated yours, human captain. We saw weakness where we should have seen strength." The last child was secured just as the Cathara ship's life support finally collapsed completely. The rescue team, burdened with their precious cargo, made their way back to the Resilience as emergency bulkheads sealed behind them. In the human ship's medical bay, Dr. Martinez worked frantically to stabilize the young Cathara. Their biology was unlike anything he'd encountered, but the principles of medicine were universal. Life fought to survive, regardless of its form. "They're stable," he finally reported. "Hibernation is holding, but I'll need to monitor them constantly. We need to find a Cathara colony ship or medical facility soon." Sarah nodded, but she knew the reality. The nearest Cathara territory was weeks away, and their ship wasn't equipped for such a journey. Worse, Cathara space was forbidden to other species. Entering it would be considered an act of war. On the bridge, she found Thaxkar standing before the main view screen, watching his dying ship. The crew gave him a wide berth, unsure how to treat the legendary predator who was now their passenger. "War leader," Sarah approached carefully, "we need to discuss our next steps. Your offspring need proper medical care." Thaxkar turned to face her, and Sarah was surprised to see tears on his alien features. She hadn't known Cathara could cry. "There is nowhere to go, human captain. My hunting fleet is scattered across the sector. The nearest colony ship is beyond your vessel's range. And even if we reached Cathara space, the Council would not welcome a human ship." "Then we find another way," Sarah said simply. "You speak of impossibilities. Humans specialize in impossibilities." For the first time since boarding her ship, Thaxkar's fearsome expression softened into something that might have been hope. "You would truly risk your ship and crew to save Cathara young?" Sarah looked around her bridge, meeting the eyes of her crew. She saw determination there, not fear. These were humans who had chosen to serve among the stars, to explore the unknown and help wherever they could. They understood what she was asking. "We'll find a way," she promised. "We always do." As if summoned by her words, Lieutenant Hayes called out from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple contacts on long-range sensors. They're big, and they're heading this way fast." Sarah's heart sank. In the distance, a Cathara hunting fleet was approaching. Ships that could tear the Resilience apart without effort. The rescue had just become infinitely more complicated. The war leader saw her expression and understood immediately. "My people come seeking me. When they find humans aboard a crippled Cathara vessel, with Cathara young in your care—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. Sarah gritted her teeth. They'd saved the children from a dying ship, only to face the possibility of being destroyed by their own people. But she'd made a promise, and humans didn't break their promises. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. "At their current speed." 6 hours, Hayes reported. 6 hours to find a solution to the impossible. 6 hours to prevent a massacre while protecting 12 sleeping children who represented the future of their species. Sarah smiled grimly. She'd had worse odds before. The Cathara hunting fleet emerged from hyperspace like nightmares made real. 12 massive ships, each one capable of reducing planets to ash. Their hulls gleamed with an organic sheen that made them look alive, predatory. Sarah watched them through the view screen and tried not to think about how outgunned they were. "Fleet Commander Vashitar demands immediate explanation," Ensign Park reported, his voice tight with fear. "They want to know why humans are near a damaged Cathara vessel." War leader Thaxkar stepped forward, his forearms spreading in what Sarah had learned was a gesture of formal address among his people. "Open the channel. I will speak for you." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a Cathara female even more imposing than Thaxkar. Fleet Commander Vashitar's exoskeleton was scarred from countless battles, and her eyes burned with cold fury. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of absolute command. "War Leader Thaxkar, you live. Good. Explain why your ship travels with humans. Explain why our sensors detect Cathara young aboard their vessel." Thaxkar drew himself to his full height. "My offspring were dying, Fleet Commander. These humans risked themselves to save them." "Impossible. Humans are weak prey creatures. They would not dare interfere with Cathara affairs." Sarah had heard enough. She stepped into view of the camera, ignoring the shocked silence that fell over her bridge. "Fleet Commander Vashitar, I am Captain Sarah Chen. Your war leader speaks the truth. His children are safe aboard my ship." The alien's head tilted in a gesture that somehow conveyed both surprise and contempt. "You dare speak to me directly, human? Your species exists only because we have not yet decided to eliminate you. And yet here we are, keeping your children alive while you threaten us." Sarah kept her voice level, professional. She'd dealt with bullies before, alien or otherwise. Vashatar's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You will transfer the young to our ships immediately. Then you will explain why you interfered with Kithara business." "No." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah heard her crew shift nervously behind her. But she didn't back down. Dr. Martinez had been clear about the children's condition. Moving them again so soon could kill them. "Did you say no?" Vashatar's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow made her more terrifying than shouting would have. "The young are in hibernation," Sarah explained. "Moving them again risks their lives. My medical officer needs time to stabilize them properly." "You dare dictate terms to the Kithara?" Thaxkar stepped forward urgently. "Fleet Commander, the human speaks truth. My offspring are fragile. The temporal anomaly damaged more than my ship. They need careful treatment." For a moment, Sarah thought Vashatar might order an immediate attack. The fleet commander's claws flexed, and her crew prepared for battle. But then her gaze shifted to something off-camera, and her expression changed. "Medical Overseer Kren confirms the readings from your ship," she said slowly. "The young show signs of temporal displacement syndrome. Moving them could indeed prove fatal." "Then you understand our position," Sarah replied. "We want to help, but we need time." "Help?" Vashatar seemed genuinely confused by the concept. "Why would humans help Kithara young? What do you gain from this?" The question caught Sarah off guard. In Kithara culture, apparently, nothing was done without clear benefit. The idea of helping someone simply because they needed help was foreign to them. "We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing," Sarah said finally. Vashatar stared at her for a long moment. "Incomprehensible, but acceptable. You have 12 hours to stabilize the young. Then they return to us." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Sarah's bridge in tense silence. 12 hours. It wasn't much, but it was better than immediate annihilation. "Captain," Dr. Martinez called from the medical bay, "we have a problem." Sarah hurried to the medical section, where the 12 Kithara young lay in their improvised hibernation chambers. The doctor looked exhausted, his usually neat appearance disheveled from hours of work. "What's wrong?" "The temporal displacement is worse than we thought. Their cellular structure is out of phase with normal time. They're aging rapidly in some areas while remaining frozen in others. If we can't reverse it—" "They'll die anyway," Sarah finished grimly. "Worse. They'll die slowly, piece by piece. It would be agony if they were conscious." Sarah studied the alien children. Even in their distressed state, they were remarkable. Their soft exoskeletons showed hints of the patterns they would develop as adults, and their faces held a serene beauty that transcended species barriers. "What do you need?" "A temporal stabilizer, something that can realign their cellular chronometer to normal spacetime. The technology exists, but humans don't have it." Martinez nodded helplessly. "The hegemony has temporal technology, but they're 3 star systems away. The Zephyrians have some capability, but they'd never share it with humans. And the Kithara themselves don't trust us enough to let us near their advanced technology." Sarah completed the thought. It was a perfect catch-22. The children needed Kithara technology to survive, but the Kithara wouldn't trust humans with that technology. "There might be another way," Chief Engineer Rodriguez said from the doorway. "I've been studying the failed hibernation pods from Thaxkar's ship. The technology is biological, but it follows quantum mechanical principles I recognize." "Go on." "If I could interface our quantum computers with their biological systems, I might be able to create a hybrid stabilizer. It would be crude, but it might work." Dr. Martinez shook his head. Jorge, that's incredibly dangerous. If you get the calculations wrong, you could kill them all instantly. And if we do nothing, they die slowly. Rodriguez met Sarah's eyes. Captain, I think I can do this, but I'll need help from their technology. Sarah understood immediately. You need Thaxcar to give you access to Cathara systems. Not just access, full technical specifications, medical data, construction parameters, everything they've got. It was an impossible request. Cathara technology was jealously guarded, never shared with other species. Asking for their most advanced medical technology was like asking for the keys to their empire. But Sarah had seen something in Thaxcar's eyes when he looked at his children. Love transcended species barriers, and desperate love made the impossible seem merely difficult. She found the war leader in the observation deck, staring out at his people's fleet. The massive ships hung in space like sleeping giants, beautiful and terrible. War leader, I need to ask something of you, something your people will consider treason. Thaxcar turned slowly. Speak. My engineer thinks he can save your offspring, but he needs complete access to Cathara medical technology. Specifications. Biological data, everything. The alien's eyes widened. What you ask? It is forbidden. Cathara technology has never been shared with outsiders. The penalty for such betrayal is death. I know. I'm asking you to trust us with the future of your species. Thaxcar was silent for a long time. Outside the viewport, Sarah could see smaller Cathara ships launching from the fleet, probably boarding parties preparing to take the children by force once the deadline expired. My offspring, he said finally. What are their chances without this technology? Sarah didn't sugarcoat the truth. Dr. Martinez estimates less than 10% survival rate. And with your engineer's hybrid system? Unknown. Maybe 50%, maybe more. Thaxcar's claws clicked against the metal railing. You ask me to choose between certain death and possible survival, at the cost of betraying my people's greatest secrets. I'm asking you to choose between following rules and saving your children. The war leader's laugh was bitter. You speak like a parent, human captain. Yes, I understand. But you do not comprehend the magnitude of what you request. If my people discover what I have done, they will hunt me across the galaxy. My name will become a curse word. But your children will live. Perhaps. Sarah waited. This was Thaxcar's choice to make, and nothing she said would influence it. Either he trusted them or he didn't. Either he was willing to sacrifice everything for his offspring, or he wasn't. Very well, he said at last. I will give your engineer what he needs, but I have one condition. Name it. If this fails, if my offspring die because of human interference, I will spend my remaining life hunting your people. Every human ship, every colony, every outpost. I will make your species extinct. Sarah met his gaze steadily. If we fail and your children die because of our mistakes, I'll help you. The war leader studied her face, looking for deception or doubt. He found neither. Then we understand each other. Come, let us see if human ingenuity can achieve what Cathara technology cannot. The next several hours were a frantic dance of cooperation between species that had never worked together before. Rodriguez and Thaxcar huddled over quantum equations and biological schematics, their two forms of science slowly finding common ground. Dr. Martinez monitored the children constantly, watching their vital signs fluctuate as temporal displacement continued to ravage their young bodies. Several times he called for emergency intervention as one child or another began to destabilize. Sarah coordinated everything from the bridge, keeping one eye on the countdown timer and another on the Cathara fleet. The alien ships had moved closer, close enough that their weapons could vaporize the resilience in seconds. Captain, Lieutenant Hayes reported nervously, the Cathara are hailing us again. Put them through. Fleet Commander Vashatar appeared on screen, her expression even more hostile than before. "Human Captain, our deadline approaches. You will transfer the young now." "Fleet Commander, we're making progress, but we need more time. Moving them now will kill them." "That is no longer your concern. Prepare for boarding." The channel closed. Around them, the Cathara ships began to move into attack formation. "Captain," Rodriguez called from engineering, "I think I've got it. The hybrid system is ready, but I need to activate it now." Sarah looked at her tactical display. Cathara boarding ships were launching, and the main fleet had powered up their weapons. In minutes, this would all be over. "Do it," she ordered. The ship's lights dimmed as Rodriguez's hybrid system came online. In the medical bay, 12 small chambers hummed with the combined power of human quantum technology and Cathara biological science. "Temporal stabilization field is active," Dr. Martinez reported. "I'm seeing cellular realignment in all 12 subjects. It's working." But outside, the first Cathara boarding ship had reached their hull. The Cathara boarding ship, attached to the Resilience's hull with a resonating clang that echoed through the corridors. Sarah could hear the cutting beams starting their work, slicing through her ship's armor like it was paper. In minutes, elite Cathara warriors would flood aboard, and no human force could stop them. "Martinez, status on the children," she called out. "Temporal stabilization is holding, but the process isn't complete. I need at least another hour for full cellular realignment." An hour they didn't have. Sarah watched the tactical display as more boarding ships launched from the Cathara fleet. Soon her ship would be overrun. "Captain," Thaxkar approached, his expression grim. "My people will not listen to reason once they board. They will take the young by force, regardless of the medical consequences." Sarah had an idea, desperate and probably suicidal, but it might buy them the time they needed. "Can you contact your fleet commander directly? Not through official channels, but personally?" "Yes, but—" "Do it. Tell her you're ordering the boarding to stop." Thaxkar's eyes widened. "I cannot countermand a fleet commander's orders. She outranks me significantly." "You're not countermanding her orders. You're protecting your children from their own rescue." The war leader hesitated, then activated his personal communicator. The device projected a small holographic image of Fleet Commander Vashatar, her face twisted with impatience. "War leader, prepare for extraction. My warriors will retrieve your offspring within minutes." "Fleet Commander, I respectfully request that you delay the boarding." "Impossible. We have waited long enough." Thaxkar straightened to his full imposing height. "Then you will be responsible for killing my children." The words hit Vashatar like a physical blow. "Explain." "The human medical intervention is working, but it requires time to complete. If you take the young now, you will murder them as surely as if you fired upon them directly." Sarah watched the fleet commander's expression change as she processed this information. For the first time since the confrontation began, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "Medical Overseer Kren," Vashatar called to someone off-screen. "Can you confirm these readings?" There was a pause as the Cathara medical expert studied whatever data they were receiving from the Resilience. When the voice responded, it carried the weight of absolute authority. "Fleet Commander, the young show significant improvement. Their temporal displacement is stabilizing. However, the process appears delicate. Interruption could cause cascading cellular collapse." Vashatar's claws flexed in frustration. "How long does this human procedure require?" Dr. Martinez stepped into view of the communicator. "Fleet Commander, I estimate 1 more hour for complete stabilization. After that, the children can be safely moved." "You guarantee their survival?" "I guarantee that moving them now will kill them. Waiting gives them their best chance." The alien commander stared at the human doctor for a long moment. Sarah could see the internal struggle playing out on her features. Trust humans with Cathara young, or risk killing them in a premature rescue? Medical Overseer Kren, Vashatar said finally, board the human vessel. Observe their procedures. If you detect any threat to the young, you will signal for immediate extraction. It wasn't the outcome Sarah had hoped for, but it was better than a full boarding party. A single Kythera medical expert was manageable. The boarding tube sealed, and moments later, a new alien figure entered the Resilience. Medical Overseer Kren was smaller than the warriors Sarah had encountered, but no less impressive. Her exoskeleton bore intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living circuitry, and her movements had a precise clinical quality. "Human medical officer," she addressed Dr. Martinez directly. "Explain your procedures." What followed was the strangest medical consultation Sarah had ever witnessed. Two alien species, natural enemies, working together to save children that belonged to neither of them. Dr. Martinez explained human medical principles, while Kren shared Kythera biological knowledge, their different approaches to medicine slowly finding common ground. "Fascinating," Kren observed as she studied the hybrid stabilization field. "Your quantum approach to temporal mechanics is crude but effective. We had not considered using inorganic processing to support organic healing." "Your biological technology is incredible," Martinez replied. "The way you've integrated living systems with quantum fields is revolutionary." Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station. "Medical Overseer, could you help me adjust the resonance frequency? I think we can improve the stabilization rate." Sarah watched in amazement as the three specialists worked together, sharing knowledge that their peoples had kept secret for centuries. Language barriers dissolved as they communicated through the universal language of science and compassion. "Captain," Lieutenant Hayes called softly, "you need to see this." The main view screen showed the Kythera fleet, but something had changed. The massive ships were repositioning themselves, moving from an aggressive formation to something more protective. They'd gone from preparing to attack to preparing to defend. "What are they doing?" Thaxakar studied the display with professional interest. "They are establishing a defensive perimeter. Someone else is coming." As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on the edge of sensor range. Ships Sarah didn't recognize, sleek and predatory in a different way than Kythera vessels. Their hulls were midnight black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Unknown vessel," came a transmission on all frequencies. "You are harboring stolen Kythera genetic material. Surrender the specimens or face destruction." Sarah's blood ran cold. She recognized that voice from intelligence briefings. The Devourers, a species that fed on the life force of others. They were especially fond of Kythera young, considering them a delicacy. "How did they know?" she whispered. "They monitor emergency transmissions," Thaxkar explained grimly. "They hunt distress calls, seeking easy prey. Your rescue beacon drew them here." The situation had just become infinitely worse. The Kythera fleet was powerful, but the Devourers had numbers. Sarah counted at least 20 ships, each one bristling with weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. They wanted their prey alive. Fleet Commander Vashatar's voice crackled over the communicator. "War Leader Thaxkar, the Devourers demand we surrender your offspring to them." "What did you tell them?" "I told them that any attempt to take Kythera young would result in the complete annihilation of their species." Sarah almost smiled. Whatever else you could say about the Kythera, they didn't back down from a fight. "Medical status?" she called to the medical bay. "Stabilization is at 70%, Dr. Martinez reported. Another 30 minutes should do it. 30 minutes to hold off an entire Devourer fleet while protecting 12 helpless children. Sarah had faced impossible odds before, but this was beyond anything in her experience. "Captain," Communications Officer Park looked up nervously, "the Devourers are demanding we respond to their ultimatum. Put them through." The main screen filled with a nightmare. The Devourer commander was a thing of shadows and hunger, its form shifting between solid matter and dark energy. When it spoke, Its voice was like the whisper of dying stars. "Human vessel, you carry precious cargo. Surrender the young Kithara to us, and we will allow you to depart unharmed." "Not going to happen," Sarah replied firmly. "You would risk your pathetic ship for alien spawn that will grow up to be your enemies?" Sarah thought about the 12 small forms lying in her medical bay, fighting for their lives. She thought about Thaxkar's desperate love for his children, and Dr. I. Martinez working tirelessly to save beings he'd never met before. She thought about what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of predators. Those aren't alien spawn, they're children, and humans protect children, regardless of species. The Devourer's form rippled with what might have been laughter. Admirable sentiment. Foolish, but admirable. You have 1 minute to reconsider. The transmission ended. Around them, both fleets prepared for battle. The Kithara ships moved into combat formation, while the Devourers spread out to surround them. "Captain," Chief Rodriguez called from engineering, "the stabilization process is accelerating. I think the quantum resonance is finding optimal frequency. Maybe 20 minutes now." 20 minutes to hold off both fleets. Sarah was about to give orders when Thaxkar stepped forward. "Captain Chen, with your permission, I would like to address both fleets." Sarah nodded, curious to see what the war leader had in mind. Thaxkar activated the ship's communications array, broadcasting on all frequencies. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of ancient tradition and absolute conviction. "I am War Leader Thaxkar of the Kithara hunting fleet. The young aboard this human vessel are my offspring, and they are under my protection. Any who would harm them will face me in single combat, as is our ancient right." The challenge hung in space like a thrown gauntlet. Sarah held her breath, knowing that everything depended on how the other commanders responded. Fleet Commander Vashatar was the first to reply. "War Leader Thaxkar, your challenge is witnessed and acknowledged. The hunting fleet stands with you." The Devourer commander's response was filled with hungry amusement. "Single combat? How delightfully primitive. I accept your challenge, Kithara. When I devour your essence, your offspring will taste even sweeter." According to galactic law, the challenge created a temporary ceasefire. Both fleets would hold position while the single combat took place. It wasn't much, but it might buy them the time they needed. "War Leader," Sarah said quietly, "you don't have to do this. We can find another way." Thaxkar's alien features softened into something that might have been a smile. "Captain Chen, you have shown me that honor exists beyond species boundaries. Now let me show you what Kithara honor means." The combat took place in the space between the two fleets, broadcast to all ships. Sarah watched from the bridge as Thaxkar, encased in ornate combat armor, faced the shifting shadow that was the Devourer commander. The battle was unlike anything Sarah had ever witnessed. Thaxkar fought with precision and skill, his movements a deadly dance of martial perfection. But the Devourer was a creature of pure malevolence, shifting between forms and attacking from impossible angles. "Medical bay to bridge," Dr. Martinez called. "Stabilization complete. The children are safe to move." But the combat was far from over. Thaxkar was wounded, his armor cracked and leaking fluids. The Devourer pressed its advantage, dark energy crackling around its form. Sarah made a decision that would haunt her for years. "All hands, battle stations, target the Devourer commander." "Captain," her tactical officer protested, "that would violate the single combat rule. It would be dishonorable." "Honor doesn't keep children alive," Sarah replied grimly. "Fire!" The Resilience's weapons lanced out, not at the Devourer ships, but at their commander. The energy beams disrupted the creature's form, giving Thaxkar the opening he needed for a killing strike. The Devourer commander collapsed into shadow and nothingness. For a moment, the two fleets hung motionless in space. Then, Fleet Commander Vashatar's voice crackled over the communications array. The single combat is concluded. War Leader Thaxkar is victorious. Devourers, you will depart immediately or face the combined wrath of Kithara and human forces. The threat was enough. The Devourer fleet vanished into hyperspace, seeking easier prey elsewhere. Later, in the medical bay, Sarah watched as the 12 young Kithara were carefully transferred to proper Kithara medical pods. They stirred slightly during the process, their alien features peaceful and healthy. They will live, Medical Overseer Kren confirmed. Your human medicine has saved them all. Thaxkar, his wounds treated and bandaged, stood beside Sarah as they watched the children. Captain Chen, my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. No debt, Sarah replied. This is what civilized beings do for each other. Perhaps, the war leader mused, the galaxy would be a better place if more species thought as humans do. As the Kithara young were safely transported to their people's ships, Sarah reflected on the day's events. They'd faced impossible odds, violated countless regulations, and somehow managed to save 12 young lives. The children would grow up to be apex predators, but they would also remember that humans had risked everything to save them. Perhaps that memory would make all the difference in years to come. Perhaps when these children became adults, they would remember that strength could be used to protect as well as dominate. The Resilience departed Kithara space with full honors, escorted by the hunting fleet until they reached neutral territory. It was an unprecedented gesture of respect from a species that had never shown respect to anyone. Months later, Sarah would receive a message from Thaxkar. His children were growing strong and healthy, and they had been told the story of their rescue. The youngest had asked to learn human languages, wanting to understand the people who had saved them. Change came slowly to the galaxy, but it came. The Kithara began to view humans differently, not as prey, but as potential allies. Trade agreements followed, then mutual defense pacts. Other species took notice and reconsidered their own assumptions about human capabilities. But Sarah's favorite message came years later, from the youngest Kithara she had helped save. Written in careful, if imperfect English, it said simply, "Thank you for showing us that strength and kindness can exist in the same heart. We will not forget." The galaxy was vast and often cruel. But sometimes, Sarah reflected, miracles happened. Sometimes the weak protected the strong, the small saved the mighty, and children lived to see another day. Sometimes humans beat all odds simply by refusing to accept that some things were impossible. That was enough.